In light of what's been going on in our nation and in our community over the past really years, but specifically since the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, we wanted to have a larger conversation about race relations and specifically about race relations as it pertains to the police department. And Sheriff Troy Berry has graciously agreed to join us for this conversation. So over the next quite a long conversation, we're gonna unpack almost all of the questions that were sent to us by folks through our social media platforms. We announced we were going to do this. You sent us questions. We've printed them out, and now we're going to ask them to the sheriff. So stay with us and watch what's going on. So during the break, one of our staff members, Patrick, came up and he asked me a clarifying question. Let me toss this out there. This goes back to some of the training and how we assess officers. If you see, if inside the sheriff's department you see an officer that seems to have reacted because of a bias that maybe the officer doesn't realize, or maybe the officer himself or herself starts to realize, hey, I think this just happened. Is there a particular approach to maybe meet with a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a counselor to just say, hey, let's talk you through this. Let's figure out why you're reacting this way?
That's an excellent question. And let me go back and talk about the whole process of becoming a police officer in the state of Maryland. First, you put in your application process and you get a testing. You have to pass a written test. You have to pass a physical agility. Once you get past beyond that, you get an information packet, you fill out the packet. Once you fill out the packet, you go through a physical examination. You go to a psychologist and go through a mental health evaluation. Okay. So a lot of some of these issues and concerns may come up through the psychological evaluation that someone submits themselves to. And then we have the truth verification piece. So through that litany of process of what you talked about in your informational package, what you submitted on your application, what you told the doctor, is all going to be fished out in the truth verification piece. So there's a multi-layered tier of being able to make sure that someone's consistent with their message and make sure that you're looking at it from different perspectives, from not only a psychological perspective, but also through making sure that what you submitted on your application is that truth verification piece.
Let's say I've got a 10-year veteran of the Sheriff's Department and some type of traumatic event or some type of experience while on the job suddenly clicks and reactions start to be different toward a people group. Is there a process to have someone catch that, either the department catch that in the individual or the individual say, hey, I don't think I'm thinking straight? Is there a process for that? And I know you can't get into a lot of the detail perhaps, but is there a process for that?
Yes. If we have an incident where that someone's involved in a traumatic event, what we do as an agency, if it's somewhere someone lost a life, or maybe it could have been a house fire, someone lost a life, we bring all of the staff members that were associated to that event, and we have what is called a debriefing. And they're able to talk through that specific situation and talk about their feelings with a mental health professional.
Okay.
And based on those conversations, based on the information that's shared, that person may be referred to EAP in reference to get some assistance with some
EAP.
EAP is a employee assistance program.
Got you. Okay.
And they may be able to speak to a mental health professional for some particular follow-ups. And or if the agency sees that individual is having a difficult time dealing with that through their performance or self-disclosed, we will send that person back to a psychologist for what is called fitness for duty.
Okay.
And that mental health professional will give us some advice of how to or if that individual could be reintegrated back into the Charles County Sheriff's Office. So to the point that you're making, if you have it's not just self-reported, if someone believed that they experienced a traumatic event, as an agency, we do the due diligence of having that debriefing. We do that due diligence by bringing forth a mental health professional to monitor and supervise that debriefing. We will continue to monitor that staff member, and we make sure that we work with the mental health professional to see how we can best integrate that person back into the law enforcement profession. But if we see, or if it's self-reported that there's some issues, we will send that person for fitness for duty.
Okay. All right. Let's change gears just a little bit here. How would you deal with a protest? The question is, how would you deal with a protest in Charles County? I'd like to expand the question a little bit. How would you deal with a protest that is showing the potential of becoming more violent and more destructive in Charles County?
It's interesting you say that. Even today, where there is a planned protest that's going to take place in reference to a rally in reference to Mr. George Floyd, dealing with the emotions of that particular issue. What we try to do is do an assessment of that event from different facets from law enforcement. We try to go out to speak with the community organizers and speak directly to them and talk about what are your goals and what are your objectives of this particular rally or protest. Because it's very important to work with the organizers and get some clear objectives stated up front. So we are on an understanding and the organizer is on understanding. And we would like for those goals and those objectives to be stated at the beginning of the rally or the protest.
Okay.
So the attendees know, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have a moment where we're going to have a number of speakers to talk about whatever the particular issue that is important to the participants. And we're also going to have a conversation of what we're the suggested do's and don'ts. For example, here recently, we had one just yesterday, where we were able to talk to the organizers, talk about the goals and objectives of the rally or the protest, and said, hey, we're going to have some speakers, and we wanted to walk along a certain area of the community. And we were able to assist them. They were able to be heard. They were able to be seen by the general public. They felt comfortable. We felt comfortable, and it was able to be done in a safe and peaceful manner. So that's what we try to do. We try to work with the organizers, make sure that we stay on task in reference to the goals and objectives of the rally or the protest, and be able to facilitate that person's First Amendment right.
It seems that in some of the instances we're watching on our TVs, and Lord knows how they screen those, so we all have our opinions of media right now. So, but it seems like in some of the instances we look at, the law enforcement has been either asked or has chosen to just draw back and abandon, I think is the word I would use, a given area or community. Is there a policy item to that? Is there anything in Charles County's policy that would say, hey, they're at this building, draw back, just let it go? Is that normal? I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm even asking a fair question, but
I think you're asking a fair question, but this is the trepidation of law enforcement. We are in a very difficult situation.
right.
For example, if we have people who are committing criminal acts and we go to attempt to stop them from stealing property or burning buildings or looting facilities, then we're looked upon as the aggressors. If we back up, we look like we're just allowing this particular rally or protest, this community to be taken over. So there are different shades of gray. So I think that what we try to do in Charles County is communication is a really important key. Because as a law enforcement official, I don't condone what's happening in other communities where you're burning police cars.
Right.
I don't condone in other communities where you're burning buildings. I don't condone in other communities where you're stealing property from stores. Because I don't think you're staying on task
Right.
of the goals and objectives of that protest. And at some point, law enforcement must be that line between chaos and peace. And we must be able to address those. But we hope that we're able to work through those particular situations through communication, because I believe people have a right to protest.
Right.
I believe people have a right to assemble and voice their opinion about injustices in the community, but we must do it in a peaceful way.
I don't know if I'm allowed, but amen. So are there plans to have just an open dialogue with young people in the county? Specifically, this says a dialogue with young black men alone to discuss race relations, profiling, and fear. Is there a program in place for that, or a plan for a program in place for that?
That's a wonderful question, Pastor Mike. Since I became sheriff, I have made it a mission to reach out to young people. I have participated with organizations such as SOAR Outreach. I have participated with organizations such as Beyond the Classroom. I have participated with organizations called Inspire Millennials. These are all organizations designed to have positive interactions with our young people in the community, and their mentor groups. I go to every elementary school. I go to every middle school and talk to the young people. I welcome them into the schools. I have an opportunity to be involved in career days. I have an opportunity to be involved in 5th grade and 8th grade promotions. So it isn't something that we started. It's something that we're doing here in Charles County. So we are definitely engaged with the young people. And we had this new initiative that we were going to start before the pandemic started. And you're going to like this. It was called Friday Night Lights and Sirens.
Okay.
And we were going to go to various communities throughout Charles County. And we had 2 motorized police cars for little kids to ride around, turn the lights on, and have a real good time. And we were going to do ice cream socials. We were going to bring out a DJ. We were going to have pizza events to be able to engage the young people.
Right.
So that is a very good question by that individual that chose to send the question. But I want to make it very clear to your listening audience. Charles County hasn't started these events. We're doing it real time.
Good. I think this also, you just answered this question, which is what plans are being put into place to reestablish the image of officers starting at elementary age. You just answered that question. So why, I have a question here that's a fairly specific question. Why doesn't the Charles County Sheriff's Office give all the violent crime, that's in quotes, incidents that occur in our county to the Maryland Independent to post in the police brief sections of the paper? The question is, are there too many? Is there a reason we don't do that?
Well, I'm not the editor of the Independent, but all of the information is public information.
Okay.
We put out press release, and also every statement of charges that is issued in Charles County, it's all public.
So what the Maryland Independent prints in its police briefs, that's not a document that comes from you to them.
No, it's
They've
a
gone to
snapshot.
your website to pick it up.
Absolutely.
Okay, so they're choosing not to pick up part of it.
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, there's another specific instance here in Charles County that I think, let me read this. A young Charles County female posted recently that she saw a young black female stopped on 210 with 4 police cars. She was fearful for the young woman and wanted to know if she could legally stop as a witness just to let the other woman know that someone had her back. This has 2 parts. First, the answer to the young lady's question above, and second, this indicates strongly that residents now feel that even Charles County police are their enemy and targeting young blacks. What is your community action plan, not just talk, for easing their fears? So let's start with the first one. We're on 210. She's pulled over. Another female sees this with 4 cars, and is it allowable for that other female to stop, or is it wise for that other female to stop and be there as a witness?
Let me kind of back up. Let's talk about the traffic stop in general.
Okay.
There are the two most deadly encounters for a law enforcement official where an officer can lose their life is a domestic violence call,
Right.
or a traffic stop.
Right.
And those are the most deadly encounters for law enforcement.
So that would also mean, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I want to make sure I understand it properly. That would also mean that's the points at which a law enforcement officer is at the highest point of preparedness and tension.
Potentially, based on the scenario.
Okay.
And there's so much information I can't speak to.
Right.
I don't know why that individual stopped. I can only surmise based on the number of officers. It was a call that was considerably dangerous, that our staff members felt that there was a number of officers that had to be on that call. But to her point, and I'm gonna get to her question, if you can do it from a safe distance and you're not impeding what the officers are doing, I say watch, be a witness. You can even record it. And if our staff members are doing something they're not supposed to do, I encourage you, file a complaint, contact us, submit the video, and let us investigate it and find out what was going on in that particular incident. Because that's important. That's important to me. If someone doesn't have has a question about police practices or what we're doing, just because you have 4 police officers on the side of the road doesn't mean that someone's just simply getting a ticket.
Right.
More often than not, based on the number of officers, it would probably was a more serious event.
All right. Okay. That makes sense. Here's the next one. I would like to know if the Sheriff Department interacts with our young people in the community to help build up a positive relationship between the two groups. If there's anything positive about the coronavirus, it's that we're all in this together. Again, I think you've already answered that, but if there's anything else you'd like to add.
No, we, as far as want to make sure that we have positive interaction with our young people, and just for that individual that submitted that call, submitted the question, that the sheriff's office, out of pocket, out of my budget, pays for basketball camps,
Okay.
football camps, soccer camps for our young people.
Okay.
Every year. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do it because of the pandemic. But moreover, we work very closely with our Charles County Public Schools, and they identify some at-risk young people.
Right.
And every year, we have a drug awareness camp where we have positive interaction with the young people, teaching them about successful living, life skills, being a good citizen. And that particular drug awareness camp culminates with a trip to King's Dominion every year.
Okay.
So we are doing some significant things with young people in the community. And that's why this is such a wonderful platform to share about what we do here in Charles County Sheriff's Office.
All right. Again, another specific instance somebody wrote about, and again, I'm not going to have a lot of detail, just what's in the few sentences. I've repeatedly heard that minorities are stopped by the La Plata police without cause. I've never experienced this, but I'm wondering how this is allowed. I have friends who refuse to visit me for this reason. Now, I would assume that's not your department, but because they're talking about the La Plata Police Department.
I have worked very closely with Chief Carl Schinner, and we have similar police leadership philosophies in our organization. So my only suggestion would be to that individual, if you had some questions, concerns, or issues with the La Plata Town Police, as I would want you to do, is contact the Sheriff's Office. If you have issues with my staff members, I would like for you to give the same courtesy to Chief Schinner in reference to that.
Here's a question we might want to take a few minutes with. We've seen Ahmaud Arbery's killers run free for 70 plus days, and George Floyd's killers free for 3 days after his death. The common denominator here is, as with many others around the country, that the arrests weren't made until after law enforcement got a hold of video proof, but after the public got a hold of video proof and cried out for their arrest. What will you do as sheriff to hold your deputies accountable to their actions and take action because it's right instead of because the public wants it?
That's a very good question. I can only speak to the practices here in Charles County. We try to look at these particular situations from different strategies. The one thing that I try to articulate to my executive command staff, I try to learn from other incidents in other law enforcement agencies. In those particular situations, we try to attack these particular incidents through training. making sure that our staff members are able to de-escalate particular situations. We encourage our community members, if you have any issues with our staff members, please complete a formal complaint so they can get into our early warning systems.
Right.
And I tell anyone, the best advice I can give you in reference to any encounter in law enforcement, we probably get to that, but I want to say it right now, move to say it right now, is that you need to comply with the orders of a law enforcement officer and complain later.
Right.
That is a campaign that we have with our young people when I talk to them about how do you interact with young people, just not young people, even adults. You must comply with the officer's orders, and there are mechanisms and processes in place that you can complain at a later time.
I used to tell my boys this. I raised 3 boys, and I would tell them the same thing. It was interesting. Again, this morning before coming here, I listened to a video of Dr. Tony Evans, who's one of my heroes. He does not know that. He does not. I don't know him. But I was in my 20s listening to him preach and thought, if I could ever, But I heard him just this week saying that exact thing to his sons and his grandsons, is comply and do everything you can to de-escalate the moment as the citizen. And if the officer's out of line, we'll deal with that. You just make it home.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, we'll come back next time and wrap this up. All right. So